talking about this series that we started last week called Words. And we started this simply because this. We don't want to just have good intentions that we know the right words to say to people that are helpful. We actually want to develop some skills. Now, there's a goal of all of our relationships, and this is where we're at last week. Just as a review, if you missed out last week, here it is. I'm going to give it to you in about 20 seconds. The goal of all of our relationships is something that you and I crave. It's also something that God craves for us, and so you definitely want what God is offering. And it's found in the book of Ephesians chapter 4. So if you've got a Bible, digital, paper, whatever, I'm sure there's a paper one in front of you, open up to Ephesians chapter 4. We started with the opening verses of Ephesians 4, and then I invited you, would you just read Ephesians 4 all week? Read it multiple times, read it over and over and over again. There's so much in there about this, the goal of our relationships. I don't know if you remember the one word, but let me read to you this. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 3 says this, and this is the goal of our relationships. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. What's the goal of relationships? Well, there's actually a unity there, that you're actually on the same page encouraging each other, that there's not brokenness. I mean, that's not God's design for us. It's that there's unity and love and affection and security and comfort. All of that falls under this umbrella of unity, and I just know this, every single one of us, we crave unity. Unless you're really messed up and you crave brokenness, and that's just weird, right? I mean, God, you want relationships that have unity. And oftentimes we don't even know that that's the thing that we're hungering for until the unity disintegrates. And we're just left with broken relationships. And then we remember, oh yeah, unity is not only fragile, but it's the very thing that I crave. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to move into not just we want unity. The question becomes this. Do you and I actually have the tools we need to have unity in our relationships? And that's a great question, to say, what kind of tools are they? Paul starts giving us these tools. He writes this letter of Ephesians, and if you keep going down from chapter 4, verse 3, go all the way down to verse 29. There's a lot of multiple tools in here, but he says this, Ephesians 4:29, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that they may benefit those who listen. Let me read this one more time. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. The primary tool that can create unity in your relationship it's your words. It's what we say. It's the number one tool, and it's unfortunately the number one thing that destroys unity as well. So let's break down this verse real quick. Do not let. It's interesting that he uses the word let in there, because what that means is we have a choice. We actually have a choice of the words that we pick. The Old Testament, there's a verse in Proverbs that says, from the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. And so our mouth says what's actually residing in our hearts. And so we can say, oh, see, we're just victims. Whatever's inside me, that's what I say. And sometimes it's hurtful, sometimes it's helpful. That's not any better. That's not actually helpful. When he says, do not let, that word let means this. You have a choice. So the words you use are the words you choose are the words you use. And the words you use, those are the words that you choose. We have a choice in this. So let me just say this tenderly. So if you say something that's not helpful, maybe even hurtful, that's because you chose that word. And the hard part about that is that sometimes we just don't know how words are going to land. Do not let any, if you've got a Bible and paper, underline that word any. Do not let any. It's interesting because I think sometimes we come up with what I would call acceptably hurtful words. Like, it's just acceptable. Like, at least I didn't say this. Have you ever had a conversation, discussion with your spouse, and somehow you thought it was going to go well, you didn't anticipate that it was going to go bad, and all of a sudden you were having a heated discussion, also known as an argument, sometimes known as a fight, and you were in the midst of that, and you're like, how did we get here? Because you said something, you had no idea that it was going to be hurtful, and you're like, I didn't intend that. And Paul's saying, listen, don't let anything that is unwholesome come out of your mouth? And I think sometimes we're like, well, at least I didn't do this. If you've ever started that sentence with, hey, at least I didn't, maybe there's some acceptable, hurtful words that you're tolerating. And I think what he's trying to say is don't become tolerant of any acceptable, hurtful words. And then he says this, do not let any unwholesome. What does that mean? Well, let's define it. That way we can pick all the words that are wholesome, right? And we can choose from those words. Here's what it means. Anything that tears someone down emotionally, spiritually, socially, intellectually, anything that tears them, anything that leaves them a little less whole than they were before, means that it's an unwholesome word. It doesn't have to be a swear word to be an unwholesome word. It doesn't have to be super, super negative. It just kind of tears at them just a little bit. By the way, we know these words really well, too, because have you ever used the phrase, man, my kids, they just really know how to push my buttons? Pushing the buttons is kind of another concept of what it means to just tear at people just a little bit. It's something that kind of pulls people apart. The Greek word for that actually means rotten, bad, or corrupt. It's just a rotten word. Let me say it this way. It rots somebody just a little bit inside. So here's what he writes. Do not let any unwholesome words come out of your mouth. So it goes on to say, though, only what is helpful for building one another up. So here's my question. How do you know what words are helpful and which ones are hurtful? Which ones lead to an unwholesome moment and which ones are actually helpful? Now, you have some options, okay? Let me just give you 3 quick options. You can just choose to talk a lot and be like, listen, I said a lot. Something there has to be helpful. Okay? Good luck with that. Try it for a week and let me know how it goes. I can tell you how it's going to go if you don't want to try it, because Proverbs 10:19 makes it really, really clear. It says this, when words are many, transgression is not lacking, but the prudent are restrained in speech. Yeah, you want to mess it up, you want to say hurtful things, just keep talking a lot. The philosophy of say a lot and maybe a little bit will be helpful. The little helpful doesn't counterbalance out the lot that wasn't helpful and that tore away at them. So there's your option number 1. You can just talk a lot and hope for the best. Second is this, I'm not going to talk at all. Because, gosh, I don't want to be accused of saying something that's hurtful or unwholesome and tears somebody apart, whether it be my son or my daughter, my parents, my spouse, a coworker. I don't want to be that person. And so I'm just not going to talk at all. But that wouldn't be fulfilling the heart of the verse. Show the Ephesians 4:29 one more time. Don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth. But here it is, only what is helpful. It doesn't mean stop talking altogether. You have to say words, but speak the ones that are helpful for building others up according to their needs. So you can talk a lot and hope some of it's helpful, or you can talk not at all, but you're not really fulfilling the call of God, though. Here's your third option. Just have really good intentions. Like, if I just really intend the best, then they'll just understand. Let me ask it to you this way. Your car breaks down. You take it to the mechanic. Do you want a mechanic with good intentions? He's super enthusiastic about working on your car. He means the best, but by the way, he never really went to mechanic school. He just has really good intentions. You want that guy working on your car? Have you seen the commercial where the guy's laying in a hospital bed and his wife is next to him? The doctor walks in the room and goes, guess who's off probation? Doctor looks at the patient and says, hey, you nervous? The guy's like, yeah. Doctor goes, me too. Don't worry, we'll figure this out. That's a doctor with really good intentions. No one wants that surgeon. Why? What do we want? We want the surgeon with skill. We want the mechanic with skill. You want to build a great marriage? You want to build a great family that has a lot of unity? We can't have just good intentions. We have to have skills. And can I just speak to a couple of you? I know you're here today, and I know there's some of you that are like, you know what? Just teach me the Bible. I am teaching you the Bible. But I don't want to just teach you a verse of Scripture and be like, Yeah, so stop using words that are unwholesome and just say things that are helpful. God bless you all. We'll see you next week. And we didn't actually teach you any skills. We just taught you a good intention. And nothing wrong with that at times, but I know some of you are like, just teach me the Bible, teach me the Bible. You know, I don't actually want to teach the Bible for information so that the more information I can give you from the text, like that's going to be helpful. We want to teach it in such a way that's going to be transformational. The success of what it is we're doing here on a Sunday morning is that our relationships actually get healthier. Are you with me in that? So because of that, I'm going to jump into what I think this verse 29 is talking about because there's some really helpful tools that we can have. So that's where we're headed. Let me ask you this real quick, though. Most of us, we're like fairly intelligent people, right? I mean, look at the person next to you. Just look and be like, hey, you're fairly intelligent. Look at the person on the other side. Okay, never mind. Go back to this side. We're pretty intelligent people, right? Then how come we can't figure out words that are helpful? I mean, you have the best of intentions to that spouse, to that kid, to that parent, to that coworker, but you say it and you're like, how come this just doesn't work? They don't feel encouraged. They feel like I'm tearing at them. I'm not. Here it is. The reason that we don't get it right an awful lot is uniqueness. You're different. And I don't mean like the man's different than the woman. Well, that's true, but man to man, woman to woman, we're just different. It's not about your gender. It's actually about what we call temperament. It's about how God wired you and how God made you. This is one of the reasons why there's not more unity in our relationships. Now, let me give you a quick disclaimer. It's not the only reason. Sometimes you just say stupid things. Sometimes you're mean. Sometimes you're careless. I'm sorry, I said you, huh? Sometimes we're mean. And we're careless. And sometimes we're just mad and bent out of shape and we're bitter and we do things because of that. But let's just, for a moment, let's pretend that none of that's in the room. We're just good-natured people that wants unity in our relationships. If that's the case, we need skills to deal with our uniqueness. So that's where we're headed today. Now, here's what's interesting. Uniqueness in people was analyzed way before Jesus ever walked the earth. There's a guy by the name of Hippocrates. Also known as Hippocrates, but we'll go with Hippocrates. He's a Greek physician, and you might know this by the Hippocratic Oath. He was a Greek doctor, and the Hippocratic Oath is that oath that doctors will take on their ethics and how they should deal with people. Well, he started noticing different types of temperaments in people, and the difference between a temperament and a personality I think is slight. Some people think it's very distinguished. Personalities, though, change over time. And it's how someone handles a certain situation at a certain time and a certain season. Temperament, though, is why they react the way that they do and the why behind their decisions and personality. And personality can change and mature. Temperament doesn't necessarily change, though. And this guy, Hippocrates, as he's observing people, he came up with these 4 distinguishing temperaments. And I'm just going to tell you right up front, the names are horrible, and they're not going to help you at all. So we're going to talk about colors in a minute. Let me just give you the 4 names. Sanguine, phlegmatic, caloric, and melancholic. Those are the 4. And you know what they're named after, honestly? Body fluid. Why does phlegmatic sound like phlegm? Because it is. They always thought that if there was some kind of imbalance in your body in these fluids, that you would have this type of temperament. Now, throw that out of the water, but these are the 4 personalities. Here's what's crazy. For thousands of years, these temperaments have stuck. To do an assessment, if you were in a community group this last week, you did an assessment either online or you did an assessment in your the books that we invited you to buy. And a lot of what we're going to talk about temperament base is in this book called I Said This, You Heard That. How many times does that describe your marriage? I said this, but you heard that. So here's the temperaments. And we're going to do this in way of discovery, okay? So here we go. At the very top is extrovert. At the very bottom is introvert. That line up the middle, let's just say the middle zone, that's 0. I want you, this is in your notes, so take a look at your notes right there. I want you to plot a point at where you're at on the extrovert versus introvert scale. Okay, so 0's in the middle. if you're a total 10 extrovert, then you're going to be at the top. If you're a total 10 introvert, you're at the bottom. So we better figure out what extroverts and introverts are, because a lot of people say, oh, extroverts, we like people. Well, we can all like people, but well, some of us don't. I mean, some of you don't. But it's different than that. An extrovert is this. It's someone often who formulates their ideas by talking out loud. Their ideas are formed out here extrovertedly, which is different than an introvert. An introvert, when they're processing what they believe and what they think, they're doing it internally. If you've ever been told, man, you speak first, think second, you might be an extrovert. If you've ever been told, man, you just don't share your ideas, you play your cards close to the vest, you don't let me know, like that, you're an introvert probably. Another way to define it, there's lots of different ways to define it. If you need to recharge and refuel and you need some energy and life and you're like, I want to go be with people, it doesn't matter whether it's 3 people or 30 people, you're probably on the extrovert side. If you're like, oh man, I need to recharge, refresh, I just need some time alone, you're probably on the introverted side. So here's what I want you to do. If you think you're a slight introvert, put yourself just below the kind of the 0 line. You ready? You're looking at me instead of writing and putting dots. You got it? Go, place yourself. Here's what I want you to do too. If you're married, place a dot where you think your spouse is. If you're not married, you have a significant other, or pick anyone from your family of origin. Put a dot where you think they are on the extrovert-introvert scale. Got it? All right, we're going to switch gears from extrovert-introvert to people versus task-oriented. Okay? On the right over here are task-oriented people. People-oriented people are over on the left-hand side. People-oriented people. You're going to measure a good day by the people you talk to. Oh, I had a conversation with this person. I mean, think about it. If someone asks you, how was your day? And you're running through the conversations you've had, the people you've talked to, that's how you establish whether it was a good day or not. Now, there's another group of you over here on this side who are like, how was your day? And you're thinking about the to-do list you have and all the check marks that you got off on your to-do list. And a successful day was what you accomplished, not necessarily who you were with. So question, where do you fall? On the task-oriented side or on the people-oriented side? And let me say it this way. If you're going on vacation and you're like, oh my gosh, we're going to go on this amazing vacation, and you have a checklist for it, first, you know that you're task side. If you're over here and you're like, people make checklists? What are those? I've never done one in my life. You're people-oriented. So figure it out. Here's what I want you to do. Ready? Put a dot anywhere along this for you, and then whoever it is you chose to map as well, put a dot for them. All right, ready? 7th grade math. Pretend there's a grid over top of this, a graph paper over top, and all I want you to do is, if you put a line on the extroverted side and the task side, bring them together, and where those points meet, 7th grade math. Did you pass that class? Like, where they meet and intersect, I just want you to put a dot right there and you write your name. If you're on the introvert, you're like a 9 introvert and a 3 on the people, then it's going to come together right over here, way down. You got it? Are you doing the math? You okay? And now map the other person too. Where did they end up? And the light bulb might be going on right now like, oh, that's why we don't get along. Let's see if I can give you some descriptors for this. Because remember, whatever box you end up in, listen. By the way, there's no bad boxes, okay? We'll get back to that in just a minute. Whatever box you're in, that's how you think. Whatever box you're in, that's how you hear things. So when people say stuff to you, you interpret it that way, and then you think about that. And then when you respond and you speak this language. Let me show you the language to it. By the way, sanguines, the colors match up. Sanguines are like happy people. Are there any sanguines in the room? I knew there'd be a noise. Because you're a yellow. Are there any blues in the room? See no noise. I mean, yellow sanguines, you're like, here I am. You are people-oriented and extrovert, so you use words that are full of people stuff and fun stuff. You say things like, that's awesome. If we had 5 people over, why not have 50 people over? I mean, and some of you are like, what? Why would you do that? Like, well, because you're not yellow. You're bright people, okay? Red people, you often speak bold, confident, controlling words. I'll do it. Let's go. Let's go now. Green people, you often speak with easygoing, unenthusiastic, patient words. It's all good. What are you doing? Just chilling? Where do you want to go? I don't care, wherever. It's good. Let's go out to here and eat. Oh, not there. Now, blues and green, right? You're calm. You're calm. Reds, you're kind of like heightened and intense and up there. And like blues, this is the only color that I don't really like because like someone would say, how you feeling? Well, I'm kind of blue. It has a negative connotation. The melancholic title, melancholy is actually kind of a term that we use for depression. And so I don't want you to see blue as bad. Blue is, we're going to call it calm and critical, okay? You speak with detailed words. You're perfectionistic. You speak words, thoughtful words. You'll say things like, well, give me a little more information on that. I need some details. You say things like, who are you going with? Is it safe? So, question, is this helpful? Are you seeing which box you're in? Is it still confusing? So remember, this is how you hear, this is how you think, and this is how you speak. What's interesting, I think, Roger, go back to Ephesians 4:29. Here's what the verse says. Do not let any, oh, that's fantastic. Just leave it right there. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful. Here it is. This is so great. Helpful for building others up according to their. So do you know what that other person needs based off of where you put them in the box? Do you know what the temperament is that your kids need? What your spouse needs? Man, if you got 5 kids and you're still married, man, you got a lot of needs right there in front of you, and they're all could be in different boxes. What about your team at work? Are you able to speak words that are helpful there, that will build them up according to their needs? Which means this, if it says according to their needs, you can't just go, well, this is the way I am. I'm red, and I speak red words, and I hear red words, and I'm just red, and that's who I am. Like, Paul, according to the Bible here, is saying that's not good enough. And so all these groups have needs. Roger, let's jump to the needs there. And if you're a yellow, you have a need for approval. Acceptance. I mean, you're putting yourself out there. You're an extrovert. And if you put yourself out there, you don't want to feel rejection. You want to feel approval, acceptance, attention. You need attention. I don't know, maybe you just need to, I don't think it's bad to, if your spouse is a yellow, to say, you just need attention right now? I know it sounds like you're talking to a 5-year-old. You're not. I mean, it's okay to ask that. Affection. That's what they need. Now, if you're on the red side over here, extrovert, task-oriented, you need loyalty. You'll show loyalty to people, but you actually need that back from them. You need a sense of control. If you've ever been accused of being controlling, that can come across as negative and positive. You need appreciation and credit for your work. You're task-oriented. You're putting yourself out there. The thing that you're doing needs to be appreciated. If you're in the green category over here, you're going to have needs for harmony and worthlessness. So if a red comes into your world and starts pushing and driving, and they think they're motivating a green, and a green is like, no, I don't need motivating. That's threatening to me. I need harmony, worthiness. I need a lack of stress. I need calm. I need respect. The blues, on the other hand, they're introverted, and they need safety, sensitivity. They need support, space, and silence. Remember, none of these groupings are bad. They're just unique. Now, if you haven't taken this assessment if you're not in a community group or you missed last week, there's an assessment in the book that we asked you to get called I Said This, You Heard That. There's also one online. You could write this down. Ready? temperamentquiz.com. By the way, everyone spells the word temperament wrong, and so double check that if it doesn't show up. temperamentquiz.com. And I know some of you are going to be like, oh, really? And the rest of the service, that's all you're going to do is take that quiz. Do it later, people, all right? So here's what's interesting. If Paul says, speak words that are helpful, that will build others up according to their needs. Question, have you been able to identify these needs in the relationships that you care about most? Sometimes these assessments, they'll give you some characteristics about who you are. And by the way, there's strengths to each of these, and there's weaknesses to each of these. Roger, let's go to the next one. Here's some strengths and weaknesses. Ready? Sanguines, yellows, I'm going to use the colors. Enthusiastic, popular, woohoo! Affectionate, joyful, tolerant. Tolerant because you're like, oh, just people matter, this is great. And if there's a problem there, like, oh, don't worry about it, we're good. Those are all strengths. But have you ever been called loud? If you've ever been called loud, you might be in the yellow category. They hate being alone. If you've ever been accused of interrupting, it's just awesome when like audience participation just proves my point. Like, yeah. Reds, confident, driven, self-directed, decisive. Those are fantastic, aren't they? Have I mentioned I'm a red? But I'm also quick-tempered, impatient. Have you ever been called bossy? That's terrible. It's probably just, you've probably been accused by a green, apathetic person down there, right? I mean, let's go to greens real quick. Strengths about it. Easygoing, patient, kind, diplomatic. I mean, people love greens. But there's no sense of urgency. If I'm having a heart attack, I want the person with medical training to be a red. No sense of urgency, indecisive, stubborn. In the blue category, enjoys solitude, perfectionistic, empathetic, creative. I mean, so many great qualities there. They can also be super, super cautious, though. Like, it's hard to get them to move and do things and be decisive. Sometimes they're just moody or critical. I hope I'm not overselling or underselling any of these. That's not my intent. I hope what you're hearing is this. There are some tremendous strengths for each of these. And there's also some tremendous potential weaknesses for each of these. I think the greatest danger is when we don't know who we are, so we don't know how we're hearing things, processing things, and speaking things back. But honestly, that's not even enough. The reason I had you plot somebody else on there is so that you would start considering how your words might be helpful to build them up according to their needs. Can you imagine how my green daughter, maybe over the years, has occasionally said to me, Dad, you're like way too intense about stuff. I'm not intense, I'm just a red. I'm not even a full red. I'm like 54% red, 46% blue. I don't even know what that means. It sounds cool, though. So you can be a combination of any of these. And I'll tell you this, the online assessment kind of breaks it up into percentages, and so it's pretty fascinating. I would highly encourage you to take a look at this. Here's what I think is important. In my intensity, do I recognize that about myself so that I'm not overpowering and controlling my green daughter? So that I might actually listen to her, not emotionally overpower her. And will I value who she is enough to give her the calm and harmony that she needs in order to be who she is? Am I going to speak words of life to her so that I'm actually meeting the needs that she has? Are you getting this? You see, we can have the best of intentions, but unless we have those kind of skills, some of you might do this naturally. I think we all have room to grow in this. The amount of conflict pastors see within people's marriages, lives, raising kids, the referrals I give to professional counselors, listen, we can get better at it in this church. So when you said this, and they heard that, why? Well, it's because we're all unique. We have unique ways of processing, and we also have unique needs. Can I say this? Is there anybody in the room, don't raise your hand, this just feels overwhelming. And you look at it and you just go, listen, this feels so complicated, I'm never saying a word again in my house. Like, it's just not worth it. Like, I'm going to say the wrong thing guaranteed because I'm a red or because I'm a yellow, because I'm a blue or a green, and the other people in my house they're not even like a little bit different than me. Like, I'm in the upper right-hand corner and they're down in the lower left, and it's just, I'm going to say something that's not going to work, and so I'm just going to check out. No. Don't check out. It's actually not even an option for us. Don't give up on this. Here's what I first want us to recognize. Then I'll show you something here. To speak helpful words, we must value all of the temperaments because those people aren't broken. They're just unique. You know what I think is interesting about this is the person in authority is often the one that can determine what's right and what's wrong, what's appropriate, what's unique, and what's broken. Let me say it this way. You're the dad, you're the mom. Oftentimes you determine which temperaments are acceptable in your house and which ones need to be fixed. You're a blue dad and you're a green mom and you have a yellow kid. And you just got to work the yellow out of them. They just need some more blue and green in them, right? Or maybe you're a yellow dad and a yellow mom. Oh, Lord, help those kids. I mean, sorry, I made yellow sound negative, huh? It's not. They're great. They're great. But then you have a blue kid who doesn't want to be with you. No, I'd rather play a video game. You guys are too loud, and you've always got people around, and I'd rather be blue because I'm blue. Now, they would never say that to you because they don't even know that they're blue because they've never done this. They're like 12, and they're like, I don't even know what a temperament is. I just know that I'd rather be alone than with you because you're my crazy yellow parents, right? But oftentimes, it's the person in authority that determines which temperaments are acceptable and which ones aren't. And what we're telling people is you're broken, and you need to change to be more like me. In the workplace, who's ever in charge and has the authority determines what's acceptable and what's okay, and everybody else has to become more like them. I'm not saying that we can't help people grow and mature and get rid of some behaviors because they aren't healthy. That's just maturity. But to try and change a person's temperament, you won't do it. You'll just create a lack of unity. I'm just wondering if some of the words we've chosen haven't valued who people are. I want you to hear this. It's not in your notes. But the difference between valuing someone and not saying they're broken and not trying to fix them, but understanding they're unique, it actually begins with you. You know your temperament's not broken? You know that God didn't mess you up when He made you? He made you exactly who He wanted you to be. He gave you the temperament because it's beautiful. Do you believe that? Or did someone somewhere along the lines tell you, you need to change that, that's not okay, you're too loud, you're too bossy, you're too introverted, you're too this, you're too that. And you thought you've been broken all this time. Can I just tell you this? God loves you, and He made you that way. He loves you exactly the way you are. Do you understand that you're made beautiful? Because I don't think you can actually bring unity into a home or into a workplace until you understand your own uniqueness, and not just understand it, but value it to say, I'm beautifully and wonderfully made. I think it's at that moment that you can look at other people and go, wow, you're so different than me. Beautifully different than me. Good Lord. Isn't that the thing that we're missing in our world today? People who are on different sides, in different boxes, across the aisle from each other, who says, oh, I'm like this, and this is the only way you can be, and this is the way you should be, and we have zero tolerance for our uniqueness. God's made you beautifully and wonderfully. And He's made those people in your life beautiful and wonderful as well. Do we value that? And do we appreciate it? Now, let me just say this. If this feels overwhelming and you're like, I just can't talk anymore because it's just going to get me in trouble. And now, Pastor, you armed the rest of my family with words like, Dad, are you just trying to change me? Just appreciate my temperament. You know your kids are going to pop off if they're in the service or just say something crazy like that. Your spouse is going to be like, I'm just different than you are. And like, now you're just not going to say a word. Can I just tell you this? This is hard. It's not easy. It's actually a skill development. Have you ever looked at the competency, the mastery of competency or the change of competency scale? You know what that is? There's 4 kind of categories, and you start over here. You're unconsciously incompetent. How's that? I mean, if it comes to understanding your temperament, how you are and how you didn't even know red, yellow, blue, green. You didn't know caloric, phlegmatic. You didn't know any of that stuff. You're like, I didn't know anything about tempers. You were unconsciously incompetent. Like you just didn't know the right words to say because you just didn't understand it. You just made a progression today, if that's where you're at. You're now consciously incompetent. I mean, look at that. We've all gotten better. Now we're aware that we suck at this. But it's progression. Because in the progression, the next thing is that you become consciously competent. If you will put effort and time and care, and God, help me to understand and help me to work this through, you start becoming better at it, but you have to work at it. Do you know that there's another category over here? When you've done this long enough, you become unconsciously competent. You don't even have to think about it anymore. Your default action, your default word, you know what to say to him. You know what to say to her. You know how to let them process. You just become competent that way. If I could give you a visual of this, there's a guy who's drumming today. His name is Josue. Sometimes you see him on the drums. Sometimes you see him on a guitar. Sometimes you see him on piano. Like, the guy can just do it all. He is unconsciously competent. Doesn't even have to think about it. Doesn't even have to look at music. Back over here is me in my 4 months of piano from 5th grade. I know I stink at this. I'm consciously incompetent. If I practiced and I got a lot better, I would now have to be consciously competent. I'm never going to get there because I just have to work too hard at it. I'm just not that good at it. Can I just say you'll make a progression? Don't give up. Don't stop giving up on this thing. Because the truth and reality is this: if you progress, you can make it all the way to a place where it becomes natural to you. It's hard at first. If you're the kind of person who gives up and quits because you're not good at something right away, it's me. Don't. Dig into this. Let me just tell you how Paul started this whole chapter. He said, be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. And then he said, make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. My prayer for you this week, and by the way, I'll tell you what my family's doing tonight. We're going to have family dinner, and my daughter's going to be there via FaceTime. And I've already sent the link to the temperament quiz to my kids and told them, commanded them through controlling red language, that they need to take the temperament quiz before 6 o'clock dinner, because dinner starts at 6, and then 6:30 the discussion begins about, because that's what my to-do list said. And then we're going to talk about it and ask this question. Hey, based off of these temperaments and where you find yourself, what are the needs that you think you have? And so we're going to start a discussion based off of that, so that my kids get better at this, so that my wife and I get better at this. I just wonder if maybe the homework for the week is this. Would you learn a little bit more about this and sit with the people that you care about, see where they're at, and just ask them, do you think you have these needs? And what are the helpful words that I could speak into you? Because I don't care if you're motivated right now. I don't care if you feel good or your intentions are good. I really care deeply about what you will do with this information. Will you be completely humble and gentle and be patient, bearing with one another in love? Because at the end of that road, somewhere along that road, is the unity that we all crave. Let's bow our heads and pray. God, thank you. I thank you that you don't leave us alone in this for us to figure out on our own. God, you're softening hearts. You're giving wisdom. You're giving us words to speak. You're uniting relationships. And so, God, I believe that you are actively working in this thing. Help us, God, to become better masters at the tools and the skills that it takes to have a united family, a united marriage, a united workplace. And so, God, give us tremendous, more than motivation, God, but give us the desire to move forward, to develop our skills. And as we do, God, keep our hearts soft. If we're hanging on to stuff that's standing in the way of our family being close, or marriage being close, or our workplace being close, God, soften us. Let us be humble to that. And if that's your desire, church, and you're going to do something about it this week, would you say amen?